Hi, I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, LLC, and I'm your host of Community Forum. A small part of focus of my work is on resiliency, and I thought it might be helpful to have a show that talks about how to stay positive and stay focused during these turbulent times when every newspaper you pick up, every news show you hear is talking about the free fall of the economy, and people's fears are feeding on themselves. So I put together a mini panel discussion with two women entrepreneurs who are serving the greater Danbury area, and I have the great pleasure to introduce to you this evening Betsy Thomas.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Betsy. And Kathy Caprino.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Kathy.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's great to have you. And just to give our viewers a little blurb on your backgrounds, Kathy's a work-life expert and author of a book that's just coming out next week, Breakdown Breakthrough, The Professional Woman's Guide to Claiming a Life of Passion, Power, and Purpose. And she's also a psychotherapist, specialized career and life coach, and founder and president of Elia Communications in Wilton. And Betsy is an author, speaker, trainer, and coach, and founder and president of Betsy Thomas Emboldened Living, a lifestyle and empowerment company in Danbury.
Right, that's right.
So great. So you both are in similar lines of work, and I'm wondering if you can just give our viewers a brief overview on your background, but how you came to this work. So who wants to take that?
Want me to go?
Yes. Sure.
Okay. I came into this work after a 20-year career, as I call it, my other life within IBM as a sales and marketing executive. And what I found there is that I really wasn't living my passion or purpose, and I would have to check myself at the door, you know, for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day. So after I had my first child, I did a lot of other, experimented with a lot of other learnings, including energy medicine, and went to graduate school for organization development. And got my master's there. And when my son was 5 and going back to school or going into kindergarten, I decided to hire a coach and figure out what I wanted to do back out in the world. And so about 3 months after working with him, I knew that it was the calling that I had probably trained for my entire life. And so it was just a fit that really fell into place for me. And so I founded my company in 2000. And it's grown from a coaching and consulting company into a lifestyle and empowerment company where I'm really focusing on, I hope anyway, inspiring and emboldening women to live their absolute most passionate and purposeful lives and to leave nothing on the table because life is short. And
So you hired a coach and you said, hey, this is pretty good, I want to do this. Right?
Well, it was so effective. It was so effective for me. And within such a short period of time, I turned myself around with the advocacy, support, and guidance and accountability of this particular coach. So it served as a model for me and an absolute inspiration. And as life has unfolded, it has become, you know, my calling and one that I hope that I'm providing the same sort of inspiration, motivation, and education for others to really, you know, get out there and live and express their lives through their passions and their purpose.
Okay, great. Kathy?
We have a lot in common, it seems. I had an 18-year corporate career, rose to vice president level, and truthfully, it was really racked with trauma and crisis. And I didn't understand these crises. I didn't know how to resolve them or get through them. And as I approached 40, I'm 48 now, really they came hard, from discrimination to chronic illness. And despite getting help, career coaches, mentors, you know, support programs, I couldn't resolve them. And as often happens, the universe stepped in and I was laid off 1 month after 9/11 and 1 month after moving to a more affluent area, bigger house, more financial responsibilities. So I said, that's it. Something has to change dramatically, and I got a master's in marriage and family therapy with the goal that I would be a therapist. And I did, in fact, start a therapy practice in Westport, but at the same time I got intensive coaching training, and I started asking women everywhere I went, how are you feeling about your career and your professional life? And what I found was shocking, which is huge numbers of women were breaking down, as I call it, having crises and traumas, and were miserable and despairing in their professional lives.
Wow.
So I decided to do a national research study, and I did with 100 women across the country. And from that, I really became rock solid in my commitment to help women break through these 12 common crises. So my company, Elia Communications, is aimed to do that, as is the book that's coming out.
So it's interesting. So both of you hired coaches yourselves for your own life process,
Yeah.
and decided to become coaches. You know, it's funny because I think 10 years ago, you know, everybody had a therapist. Now these days it seems like everybody has a coach.
It is in vogue, thank you.
So anybody, I mean, it's a growing field, and the field's wrestling with its own professional standards. And it seems like today anybody can hang out their shingle and declare themselves a coach. Can you've spoken a little bit to the benefits that you've both personally have derived from having a coach. What would you tell to our viewers in terms of how you select one that's competent, skilled, you know, well trained, as you both were, and a good fit for you?
I'd love to jump in on that. First of all, you know, there are credentials, and I think they are important to really understand what the training is, how extensive, what the specialization is, definitely. But really, I think most importantly is the fit, you know, how you feel when you meet with that person and speak with that person. You know, in therapy they say, and I think it's true in coaching, it's the relationship. And I also believe, you know, in terms of empowerment, does that person, that coach, see the future vision of you before it's really been hatched? Do they believe that you can really follow your compelling life visions?
So not just who you are today, but they see who you're becoming or who you can become.
And believe you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, feel good about it. If you don't feel good in your coaching sessions or after the first phone call, you don't have to think twice.
Yeah.
And I would just add to that there's a certain resonance. I always offer a free 1-hour consult with any client that comes to me to establish that fit. And I always tell them, you know what, if it feels right, it probably is right. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So honor that intuition. And what I attract into my practice is clients I love. And I think it's by that process of allowing them to come and see if it feels and if it resonates. And I think that is probably the key factor to a successful experience for any client-coach relationship. At least it has been in my practice, is that fit. If the fit isn't there, I don't think the process works as well.
So really what you're both saying is somebody can feel, you can go to somebody who on paper has all the right credentials, but if it's just not a personal chemistry fit in terms of your comfort level,
Right.
then
I think
find
there's
somebody
one
else.
other thing. I like to go to coaches who've actually achieved what I'm trying to achieve. For instance, I'd love to bring my business to the $1 million level. I'm now seeing a coach who has done that and can really tactically help me do that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I want to learn and have a mentor in someone who's done what I'm dreaming to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got the expertise.
So what are you finding in your businesses in terms of the kinds of reasons people come to you today? And I'm wondering if the events of the last couple months in terms of, you know, the free fall of the economy, as I'm describing it, has attracted more or different kinds of clients?
It has absolutely sent more people to me, so I'm very grateful for that. And what I find typically, the majority of my clients are searching. They're searching for meaning, they're searching for purpose, and there's always something missing, whether that's a goal that they have, that they are aspiring to accomplish, or a dream that they have that has gotten buried over the years under the obligations and expectations of the world around them. There's this little niggling feeling that they just can't quite ignore. And so what actually propels them, I think, oftentimes is that unrest that they feel, and that things just aren't flowing. And what I think you know, most people come to me for, and hopefully are provided with, is the opportunity to really reflect on their lives, refocus, and redirect. I mean, those are the three ways that I work in trying to embolden women to really take responsibility for their own lives.
So reflect, refocus, and redirect.
And redirect.
Okay, Kathy, how would you address that?
Yeah, you know, my book is called Breakdown, Breakthrough. It's about when we break down and the positive side of that. How do we break through? And right now, we've got a lot of people breaking down. And I don't mean that clinically. I mean, you know, when we place outside ourselves the feeling that our job, our bank account, whatever, is the secure thing, and when that dissembles, you have a lot of people feeling very scared and also very resentful that they've been on a track that they in fact haven't loved, thinking that was the secure thing.
Yeah.
And poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I have people very confused and very stuck.
So some of it's sort of shattering people's illusions, maybe.
Illusions.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And also dismantling, I find a big piece of my work is dismantling old belief systems that really have people stuck in ways of being and ways of living that don't serve them any longer.
You know, you're hitting on something. The movie and the book, which I know you're both familiar with, The Secret, popularized, it was great packaging, and it popularized some age-old metaphysical concepts around the laws of attraction, which you were referring to in terms of cause and effect. You know, change your thinking, change your life. And some have criticized the movie for focusing too much on the material aspects of it, you know, that you were mentioning, Kathy. What do you both think about the concepts that are presented in The Secret, and what's been your experience in working with them?
I'd love to say, you know, in any kind of movement or mass excitement, you know, there was a shift that was, I think, created or built on from that book, and that's positive. And to me, that was about the idea that you, in fact, co-create what occurs to you through your thinking. And I think that I wholeheartedly agree with that. Where I think it fell short, and a lot of people, there was a backlash about it, is that it really didn't talk about the tactical steps required to, you know, go from point A to point Z. So, you know, I think there were a lot of hopes and wishes.
There was a lot of visualization.
Visualization, yeah. So I think that's where it fell short. About the material piece, I do believe that if we can move our focus away from what we can get out here and build it internally, that leads to a more powerful, passionate life, happy life. So in a way, it did a little bit of a disservice. But when you're talking to a mass group, you need a simplified way to look at things. And I think the material piece was that, you know, how to envision getting the car that you want.
So you're saying that maybe it was oversimplified because it sort of came down to a motto, you know, change your thinking, change your life, and it doesn't work for some people. So what can you speak to that, Betsy?
I can. In fact, I use the law of attraction as one strategy that is so powerful in my work. I've actually built my entire business using it as a philosophy that life is really not about exertion, will, and assertion. It's more about invitation and attraction. So the whole notion that everything that we want in life is not upstream, that we have to paddle up to get it, but it's really down here, downstream, and what we really need to do is just let go of our oars and turn into the stream. And that's what you referenced, the inner stream. You know, it's coming inside, tapping into the inner source or well-being that's already there.
Yeah.
When people learn that that's even an option, because there's a meme in our culture that we have all bought into that is life is difficult, life is hard, you know, no pain, no gain. You gotta, you know, failure fuels success. I mean, all of those.
So you're saying stop the resistance of sort of fighting upstream, go with the flow. Now, what would you say to people who might say, okay, yeah, that's great. Where's the fine line between, you know, recognizing, because sometimes life can be hard and can be painful. You know, it can be everything. It can be great. Where's that fine line between being in denial and inviting all aspects of life?
Yeah, that's a great.
You know?
It's a great question. And I think your question earlier was, you know, change your thinking, change your life. What if you don't? What if you can't do that?
Yeah.
Well, basically, if you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So it's shifting your belief system. And what I teach and have become certified in with Michael Lozier, who is now on Oprah's channel, teaching the law of attraction, is the absolute how-tos. The Secret was beautiful, and I agree with you. It really set, it shifted the mindset in our country about how you are a co-creator in this life. You're not a victim.
Yeah.
The universe, you say yes to the universe, and then it says yes back.
Yeah.
And the how-tos are what I use in my practice, but I also use emotional freedom techniques, neuro-linguistic programming. Those energy healing and energy medicine is always at a cellular, physical, mind, body, spirit connection to help people shift out of old, limiting belief patterns.
Okay. So, Kathy, what would you say about life being a joy versus a struggle?
Ooh. You know, it's interesting. I come from and I work with people who've had trauma, and I'm one of those. I've lived through 12 common crises. I think there is struggle. but you know, I don't view that as a negative. Where what I do with clients, and even in my own life, when something terribly traumatic or difficult or challenging or obstacle-ridden comes my way, I try to frame it as, what am I to learn here? I really believe we invite these occurrences so that we can embolden and empower ourselves. So, you know, struggle is a good thing. It means that we're stretching. It means we're being presented with things that are out of our comfort zone.
It's so interesting, because I would take it to this place. Working hard, yes, absolutely. Struggle and strife is, you know, it's and I agree with you too, though. Trauma, I mean, and you said you would invite those things in. I agree with that too. And sometimes we have no control over what happens to us, but we do have a choice in terms of how to respond. And that's where my work takes hold with people. It's, okay, here's what life has dealt me. You have a choice in how to respond to the universe. You can say no and resist it, or you can say yes and allow it. And when you say yes to the universe, to what is, the energy that you've held that beach ball underwater, trying to hold it down in resistance, you know, you get all of that life force back up to parlay into a solution that couldn't have been accessible in a resistance mode. So it's really a phenomenally exciting for clients and people to realize that you have choices and options in terms of how you live.
Let's take a real example, because I do this in my work as well, and so what I struggle with, you know, with my clients is that fine choice point, you know, where somebody's just been notified that they were laid off, as an example, which is probably a common phenomenon today, right?
Very common.
And so they go through all the emotions, the ups and downs, the anger, the bargaining, you know, eventually the acceptance, where they come to, you know, resolution and action forward. So how do you work with people in that space, that choice point moment where they're wrestling with all of those messy emotions?
Emotions are good, though. I mean, I think, sorry to jump in, but I think you absolutely need to feel. And there's a place for feeling and processing and grieving. I mean, it's a necessary, you don't jump over those into feeling good.
I wasn't sure, because at first you were saying it's not all, let's just be happy, let's go focus here. It's working through the emotions to get there.
You have to work through emotions, absolutely, because we're human beings. And in the human energy, what happens with emotions when they become toxic is when we're stuck. You know, we stick them down there and we don't feel them. The quicker you feel them, the quicker they come up and out and through. So it's feeling, absolutely. Feeling is a process.
Okay, so you're not saying, you know, just being the joy, you're saying accept what emotions you're feeling. And the more you accept it, the quicker you go downstream versus fighting it to go upstream.
Well, you know, it's come up lately for me as I'm stretching to another level. Sometimes this is scary, you know, to all of a sudden step up to a bigger vision of yourself.
No matter how great it is.
Woo! It's great, you invited it, you attracted it, but oh my goodness, I'm not quite ready. It's not perfectly fun. You know, I tell people, don't forget this is a bumpy ride. This is a bumpy ride, stretching to what you want. It's all good, but it's bumpy. So, you know.
And bumpy is good.
Bumpy's good.
Bumpy is good. The hills and the valleys.
Well, you know, as you know, when you have your own business and you're not accountable necessarily to anyone else, you're the boss, you're accountable to your clients. What are the challenges that you've both faced being women entrepreneurs? And we discovered as we were preparing for the show that we all have 11-year-olds. And I know you both have 2 preteens and teenagers, so you've got families. What are some of the challenges that you've faced in starting up and running and growing your businesses? And how have you dealt with them? How have you kept yourself in that positive visions focused space when you're dealing with some challenges?
I'd love to talk about that. Starting up the business, which I did 5 years ago, for me the biggest challenge was what I called rainmaking. You know, when you're in your own business, really it's about networking and reaching out and joining organizations. And to me it felt like, wow, it's all got to come from me, versus my corporate life where I stepped into the role and there it was. I knew what I had to do.
Make it happen.
That was very challenging. Now that I'm at the other end of the arc, or another end, now there's so much opportunity, so many leads, I don't have time in the day to do it. So the big challenge is to ramp up quickly to support what you've invited in, and that's got its new challenges. The other piece is, I say this in talks that I give to women, I really believe that when you have children, or for me anyway, the single most grueling challenge in life has been to balance what I want to be as a mom and a family person with what I want to contribute in the world. It's grueling. It's so difficult to balance for me. Here we go with struggle. Bumpy, bumpy, very bumpy. And you know what?
You got the bump meter there.
That's right. That's a 10.
But I have an answer.
Well, so do I. Read my book. I talk about many, many women overfunction. We overfunction, which is doing too much, more than it is necessary, more than is appropriate for the people around us, for our children, for our spouses, for our colleagues. So, you know, for me, the 3-step program I talk about is step back to get an expansive perspective, let go of the fears and the beliefs and the actions that hold you back, and then say yes to your compelling visions. But it's those 3 steps, and part of that is really letting go of why are you over-controlling? Why are you over-functioning? What are you afraid of?
Yeah. Betsy, would you speak to the bumpy road?
Yes. No, well, you know, my philosophy has been, you know, or I think the challenge has been the juggle. So, but what I've learned through trying to juggle it all is that balance is a word that doesn't exist for me. And when I talk about balance to people, you know, everyone wants to achieve balance. But if you think about an airline pilot who's flying a plane and he's going from point A to point B, or she is, that plane and the controls are never they're never you know, static. It's always a series of course corrections, constant course corrections.
So it's like recalibrating.
Absolutely, based
dynamic
upon
balance.
Dynamic balance. It's a great way to put it. It's fluid. So I don't aspire for balance anymore. I just know that, again, I surrender to what is showing up. Sometimes it tips on and airs on the side of being incredibly in the flow, and other days I am out of the flow. And all of it, I just try to say yes to, and I'm not always successful. But when I say yes to it, the energy that I, you know, spend complaining about not being able to do it all.
Let's redirect that.
Is redirected into being able to do all of that. And the other.
So it's funny. So you've got the flow meter and the bump meter.
Isn't that
bumpy ride? Whoa, we're flowing down.
But you know, it becomes a practice. You know, for me, it's become a practice, and it is so. You know, I've found that I can stay in the flow much more. But I've also found that, like you, struggling with. A large part of my happiness is my family, and a large part of my life happiness is my purpose and work, my calling. And so I have had to say no to some things in my family to say yes to my work life, and no to some things in my work life to say yes to my family. That's the fluidity, and it's all okay, but I've absolutely had to allow my business to grow in a way that could accommodate, you know, the different shifts.
And the priorities.
So you're dynamically making the choice points, you know, in the moment, in the day, in the week.
Every day, every moment for me.
You know, the interesting thing, because as you know, I worked for IBM for a number of years also. And when people talk about strategy in business, they always want to do it all. But strategy is about making forced choices. It's like you can't do it all, and this day or this week anyway. You know, so in that day, that week, what are you going to make a choice about?
And I think that's the most important thing in balance or flow. What is essential to you?
Right here,
and what can you let go of? Because if you're trying to do it all, something pretty negative will happen.
The letting go, the big let go for me was guilt. I had to let go of my guilt around getting help at home. I had to let go of guilt in getting some help with cooking. I don't happen to be very good at that. I'm saying that on television now. Everyone in the world knows.
Wow.
But everyone really knows. That's right. Don't cook for dinner.
So, that's right. If we do BYOF, bring your own food. No.
That's right.
So just, we have like a couple minutes here, literally, just by way of wrap up. What's a headline by way of advice you would give to other women or other men who are thinking of starting their own businesses? Go ahead.
I think my most powerful piece of advice, if it could be that, would be to absolutely begin to get quiet about yourself and thinking about who you are, what matters to you in life. How do you want to spend these years that you have on this planet? You're here for something. Life is short. You know, I always say, get busy living or get busy dying. You know,
Yeah.
and it's short. It's a sense of compelling. You know, it's got to be a compelling. Don't waste the opportunity to search that out. Find out what really is your passion, you know.
So when you say get living, dying, you're either expanding and growing, or you're saying yes,
Absolutely.
yesing, or you're saying no.
Or you're
and
saying
shrinking.
no.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yes is so much more fun than
Yeah.
saying no. It really is.
Yeah.
And you draw in, when you say yes, so much more yes from the universe. So it supports you.
Yeah.
So I think that that would be, you know, say yes to
Great.
those little dreams that you keep burying and keep, you know, covering over. Or
Yeah.
yes to that
Yeah.
business that you thought you might want to start.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
I would build on that. I say, you know, yes to your compelling life visions. However, to have one's own business and launch it is really a very large task.
Yeah.
So I also believe in the tactical. So if you really wanted to start a nonprofit to feed the hungry, find a role model.
Yeah.
You know, speak to them, live it, try on the identity of it,
Yeah.
and put one foot in front of the other to move on that path. Often what we want, we think we want, isn't in the end what we want. But the only way to know that is move on the path. So I say, if that's your dream, let's get on the path together to move forward to it. What you will learn will be life-changing,
Yes, you'll get
whether you do it in the end or not.
And you'll discover things in the process, such as it sounds like that you went through in
About
becoming
therapy.
a therapist and then realizing,
Yep.
want to redirect that. Work with the worried well.
Exactly.
I don't know, that's just a
Yeah,
term I
it was a life-changing experience, which I'm so
Yeah.
thankful for.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out the way I thought,
Yeah.
but I'm so grateful for that.
Okay.
I always say, you know, walk through one door and 3 more will open that you can't imagine. But you won't know until you walk through that one. So always take fear in one hand, courage in the other, and walk through, and 3 more open up.
Okay. So if folks are interested in talking with you further, or feel like we're in their living room, but, you know, talking with you directly, where can they reach you at?
My website, eliacommunications.com, you can reach me there. Yeah,
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Probably the best place to reach me is www.betsythomas.com.
Okay, great. Thanks, ladies. It was
Thank
very
you.
uplifting and
Thank you,
inspiring. Thanks for
Susan.
being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Until next time, I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Thank you for joining us. It's off? Didn't know.
That was